Hey there, truth seekers. Before we dive into today's incredible story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Today's tale is about assumptions, redemption, and the price of judging a book by its cover. And it all started on a sweltering summer day at Preston Gray's Luxury Motors in Cincinnati, Ohio. When J.D. Vance walked into that gleaming dealership wearing work boots and a worn jacket, nobody could have predicted how the next few hours would unfold, or how one manager's mistake would lead to a moment that would be talked about throughout the entire automotive industry in Ohio. The summer of 2021 had been particularly challenging for luxury car dealerships in Cincinnati. The market was tight, inventory was low, and tension ran high among sales staff competing for increasingly rare commissions. Preston Gray's Luxury Motors stood as a beacon of exclusivity, its showroom floor a testament to automotive perfection, where vehicles worth more than most people's homes gleamed under carefully arranged lighting. The dealership had built its reputation not just on the cars it sold, but on its ability to cater to the city's elite. Its manager, Holden Briggs, had cultivated an atmosphere of exclusivity that had served the business well for over a decade. With his perfectly tailored suits and commanding presence, Briggs had become known for his ability to spot a serious buyer from a mile away, or so he thought. The morning had started like any other. The sales team, led by Sterling West, had gathered for their daily meeting, discussing targets and potential clients. The showroom had been meticulously prepared, each vehicle positioned at precisely the right angle to catch the morning light. The coffee machine hummed in the customer lounge, filling the air with the aroma of premium roast, while the latest ambient music selection played softly through hidden speakers. What made this particular morning different was the presence of a potential investor. Xavier Boone, representing one of the largest automotive investment groups in the Midwest, was scheduled for a discreet visit. The staff had been briefed. Everything needed to be perfect. The dealership's reputation for excellence could translate into a multi-million-dollar investment that would secure their position as the premier luxury car retailer in Ohio. J.D. Vance's arrival couldn't have come at a more crucial moment. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, bringing with him a gust of hot summer air and the distinct sense of someone who didn't quite belong in the rarefied atmosphere of Preston Gray's. His boots left faint marks on the immaculate floor, and his jacket, while clean, had seen better days. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was looking for, but to the watching staff, he looked like just another tire kicker, someone there to waste their time and potentially drive away serious customers. The first person to notice him was Kendrick Shaw, a junior salesman who had only been with the dealership for a few months. Shaw took one look at Vance and strategically became very busy with some paperwork, following the unspoken rule about not wasting time on unlikely buyers. This subtle dismissal was just the beginning of what would become an increasingly tense situation. As Vance made his way through the showroom, his eyes lingering appreciatively on a particular vehicle, the atmosphere began to shift. Other customers, dressed in business attire and designer clothes, cast sidelong glances his way. The whispers started, quiet but noticeable. The kind of whispers that had followed Vance throughout his life, from his childhood in the Rust Belt to his time in the Marines, through Yale Law School and beyond. But there was something different about Vance that the staff at Preston Gray's couldn't quite put their finger on. Despite his casual appearance, he carried himself with the kind of quiet authority that comes from having fought your way up from the bottom. His eyes moved over the vehicles with the practiced assessment of someone who understood both their mechanical and social value. The tension in the showroom reached its first peak when Vance approached. A particularly exclusive model, one of only 3 in the state. Holden Briggs, who had been watching from his office, decided it was time to intervene. The potential investor would be arriving any minute, and having someone who looked like they couldn't afford an oil change touching their premium inventory wasn't part of the image they wanted to project. What happened next would become the stuff of legend in Cincinnati's automotive circles. As Briggs approached, his expensive shoes clicking against the polished floor, he had no idea he was about to make a mistake that would not only change his perspective, but reshape the entire culture of luxury car sales in the region. The first words out of Briggs' mouth were carefully chosen to be polite yet dismissive. "Sir, I notice you're interested in our vehicles. Perhaps I could direct you to our pre-owned section at our sister dealership down the street." The suggestion hung in the air, its real meaning clear to everyone within earshot. This was a sophisticated way of saying, "You don't belong here." Vance turned slowly, meeting Briggs's gaze with a calm that would later be described by witnesses as almost unnerving. The next few minutes would demonstrate why assumptions about people based on their appearance could be not just morally wrong, but professionally disastrous. The showroom had grown eerily quiet. The ambient music seemed to fade into the background as other customers and staff members tried to pretend they weren't watching the scene unfold. Even the usually bustling service department beyond the glass partition seemed to have slowed its activity, as if the entire dealership was holding its breath. What nobody in the showroom knew was that J.D. Vance wasn't just any customer. His journey, from a challenging childhood in the Rust Belt to success, had taught him valuable lessons about perception and reality. His worn jacket and work boots weren't signs of poverty. They were choices made by someone who understood that true value doesn't always come in a polished package. As the confrontation began to unfold, Felix Monroe, one of the senior salespeople, noticed something unusual. Despite Briggs's increasingly transparent attempts to usher him out, Vance remained perfectly composed. There was none of the defensive anger that usually came from customers who felt discriminated against. Instead, there was something else. A hint of amusement, perhaps, or the quiet confidence of someone who knew something others didn't. The tension in the showroom continued to build as Briggs became more insistent. "Sir, I really must insist. We have appointments arriving shortly, and we need to maintain a certain atmosphere." The words were professional, but the meaning was clear. In Briggs's mind, Vance was a disruption to the carefully curated image he had built for Preston Gray's luxury motors. What happened next would become a turning point not just for the dealership, but for the entire concept of luxury car sales. In Cincinnati, as Vance reached into his jacket, everyone expected him to pull out a worn wallet or perhaps some crumpled papers. Instead, what emerged would change the dynamic of the entire situation in ways nobody could have predicted. Think about a time when someone made assumptions about you based on your appearance. How did you handle it? Share your stories in the comments below and stay tuned for the next chapter of this incredible story, where we'll reveal exactly what J.D. Vance did next and how it transformed not just one dealership, but an entire industry's approach to customer service. In that moment, as J.D. Vance reached into his jacket, the atmosphere in Preston Gray's luxury motors crystallized with tension. But what he pulled out wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a reality check that would shake the foundations of how luxury car dealerships operated in Ohio. From his worn jacket, Vance produced a business card. Not just any business card, but one bearing the distinctive logo of Naria Capital, the venture capital firm he had founded. The card itself was understated, much like its owner, but its implications were anything but. As Holden Briggs took the card, his face went through a transformation that veteran salesman Levi Brooks would later describe as watching someone realize they'd just stepped off a cliff. The revelation wasn't just about Vance's identity as a successful venture capitalist. What made the situation even more dramatic was that Naria Capital had recently been in the news for a series of major investments in automotive technology companies. In fact, Vance wasn't just shopping for a car. He had been quietly evaluating dealerships across Ohio for a potential large-scale investment in modernizing their operations. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone in the showroom. Rowan Blackwell, a junior salesperson who had been watching from behind a display, would later recall how the expensive watches and designer suits that had seemed so important moments ago suddenly felt meaningless. Here was someone who could have bought the entire dealership several times over, being judged by the very people who desperately needed his investment. But what happened next revealed even more about Vance's character than his financial status. Instead of immediately revealing his full identity or potential business interest, he maintained his calm demeanor and said something that would be repeated in sales training seminars for years to come. "I'm curious, Mr. Briggs, how many other potential investors you've turned away because they didn't meet your visual criteria for success?" The question hung in the air like a suspended moment of truth. Garrett Lowe, the dealership's veteran finance manager who had seen his share of difficult situations, would later describe it as the moment when the entire dealership's philosophy cracked like a windshield hit by a stone. The impact of those words spread through the showroom like ripples in a pond. Briggs attempted to recover, his professional demeanor cracking slightly as he began to stammer out apologies. But Vance wasn't interested in apologies. Instead, he did something that would become legendary in Cincinnati's business circles. He asked to speak with every person who had been dismissed or overlooked by the dealership in the past month. The request sent shockwaves through the staff. Dean Whitmore, the customer service manager, frantically began reviewing security footage and customer logs. What emerged was a pattern that made the dealership's bias painfully clear. Dozens of potential customers had been subtly, or not, so subtly, turned away based on their appearance alone. As this information came to light, something unexpected happened. Other customers in the showroom, who had been pretending not to watch the scene unfold, began sharing their own experiences. Marcus Ellery, a successful contractor who happened to be there that day, stepped forward to recount how he had been directed to the used car section on his first visit, only to return later in a suit to buy 3 luxury vehicles for his company. The situation took another turn when Xavier Boone, the expected investor whose impending arrival had made the staff so nervous about Vance's presence, walked in. But instead of the awkward moment Briggs feared, Boone's face lit up with recognition. "JD," he called out, "I see you're doing your usual thorough due diligence." This casual interaction revealed another layer of the situation. Vance and Boone weren't just acquaintances. They were potential business partners in a larger initiative to modernize luxury car sales across the Midwest. The very evaluation that Briggs had been preparing for had already been happening, just not in the way anyone expected. As the reality of the situation sank in, the dealership's atmosphere underwent a remarkable transformation. The artificial polish began to fade, replaced by something more genuine. Heath Montgomery, a senior salesman who had been with the dealership for 15 years, later described it as watching a mask fall off the entire operation. But Vance wasn't done. In a move that demonstrated why his rise from humble beginnings to business success was no accident, he turned the awkward situation into an opportunity for transformation. Instead of simply walking away or using his position to embarrass Briggs further, he proposed something unprecedented. "Let's talk about how this dealership could become a model for inclusive luxury sales," Vance suggested, pulling up a chair in the customer lounge. The very space that had been designed to intimidate and exclude suddenly became the setting for a masterclass in modern business philosophy. For the next hour, Vance shared his vision of how luxury car sales could evolve. He spoke about his own journey from a challenging background to success, and how experiences like the one he'd just had were symptomatic of an industry stuck in outdated thinking. The staff, including those who had dismissed him earlier, found themselves drawn into a discussion that would fundamentally change their approach to their work. Emmett Vaughan, the dealership's marketing director, furiously took notes as Vance outlined how authentic customer service could replace superficial judgments. The concept was simple but revolutionary. Treat everyone as if they could be the next success story, because many of them would be. The transformation of Preston Gray's luxury motors had begun, but it wasn't just about changing policies, it was about changing mindsets. Vance shared stories of people he knew, successful entrepreneurs, investors, and professionals, who, like him, didn't fit the traditional luxury buyer profile. Each story hammered home the same point: success doesn't wear a uniform. As the calm afternoon wore on, something remarkable happened. The artificial barrier between the staff and customers began to dissolve. Noah Sinclair, a detail specialist who had always been kept in the background because he didn't fit the dealership's polished image, was invited to share his extensive knowledge of the vehicle's engineering. His passionate expertise impressed everyone, including the other customers. But the most profound impact was on Holden Briggs himself. The manager who had started the day thinking he could judge a person's worth by their appearance was now facing a complete restructuring of his worldview. The very qualities he had dismissed in Vance, the authentic presentation, the focus on substance over style, were exactly what had made Vance successful enough to be a potential investor. The story might have ended there, with a simple lesson about not judging books by their covers, but what happened next would send ripples through the entire luxury car industry in Ohio. As Vance prepared to leave, he made an announcement that would transform not just Preston Gray's, but the entire approach to luxury car sales in the region. Think about a time when you witnessed someone's preconceptions completely shattered. How did it change them? Share your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned for the next chapter, where we'll reveal the innovative program Vance proposed and how it revolutionized the concept of luxury sales. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. What happens next in this story of transformation and redemption is something you won't want to miss. In the weeks following the incident at Preston Gray's Luxury Motors, something unprecedented began to unfold in Ohio's automotive industry. What started as a confrontation between J.D. Vance and Holden Briggs had sparked a revolution that would reshape how luxury cars were sold across the Midwest. But the real story wasn't just about cars. It was about challenging the very notion of what luxury and success looked like. The transformation began with a simple question Vance posed during a meeting with the dealership's leadership team. What if we built a luxury car dealership that celebrated authenticity instead of pretense? The idea seemed radical to an industry built on polished surfaces and careful exclusivity, but Vance saw something others had missed: a massive untapped market of successful people who, like him, didn't fit the traditional luxury buyer mold. Uriel Layton, the dealership's data analyst, was tasked with examining the numbers, and what he found was staggering. By conservative estimates, the dealership had turned away potential buyers representing millions in lost sales over the previous year alone. These weren't just casual browsers. They were successful entrepreneurs, contractors, tech innovators, and professionals who didn't match the dealership's narrow profile of a luxury buyer. But Vance's vision went beyond just identifying missed opportunities. Together with Xavier Boone, he proposed what they called the Authentic Luxury Initiative. The program would completely reimagine how luxury vehicles were sold, starting with Preston Gray's as a pilot location. The first change was immediate and symbolic. The dress code for sales staff was relaxed to include a wider range of professional attire, acknowledging that success didn't always wear a designer suit. Maddox Price, a veteran salesperson who had initially resisted the changes, found himself surprised by the results. "I used to think our formal atmosphere was what sold cars," he would later recall, "but it turned out authenticity was a far more powerful sales tool." His commission earnings in the months following the change would prove his point dramatically. The initiative's impact spread rapidly through the industry. When Walker Jennings, owner of a competing dealership, visited Preston Gray's to see the changes firsthand, he was shocked to find the showroom buzzing with a diverse mix of customers, all receiving the same high level of service. The old barriers of presumption had been replaced by genuine engagement and automotive expertise. One of the most significant changes came in how the dealership handled initial customer interactions. Gone were the subtle tactics used to screen out undesirable customers. Instead, inspired by Vance's own story, every visitor was greeted with the same assumption that they could be the next success story walking through the door. The transformation wasn't without its challenges. Some longtime employees, like Sterling West, initially struggled with the new approach. "I thought I knew exactly what a luxury buyer looked like," he would later admit during a training session. "Turns out I was missing out on some of our best customers by holding on to those assumptions." The initiative gained unexpected momentum when Isla Montgomery, a popular social media influencer, shared her experience at the transformed dealership. Her post about being taken seriously despite her casual appearance went viral, drawing attention from successful entrepreneurs and professionals who had similar stories of being dismissed at other luxury retailers. Vance's influence extended beyond just sales practices. He worked with Lachlan Drew, the dealership's training director, to develop a new onboarding program that emphasized emotional intelligence and authentic customer connection over superficial sales techniques. The program would later be adopted by dealerships across 3 states. The changes attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Keaton Wells, a prominent business journalist, visited the dealership to write what he thought would be a simple story about customer service improvements. Instead, he found himself documenting what he called a fundamental shift in how luxury retail interprets success and worth. In modern America, perhaps the most powerful validation came from the customers themselves. Quentin Shaw, a tech entrepreneur who had previously been dismissed at 3 other dealerships, completed a multi-vehicle purchase for his growing company. "For the first time," he noted, "I was evaluated by my interests and needs, not by my jeans and sneakers." The initiative's success led to a series of industry panels where Vance shared the philosophy behind the changes. "Luxury isn't about exclusion," he would explain to rooms full of industry executives. "It's about excellence in product and service, offered without prejudice to those who have earned their success, regardless of how they choose to present themselves." The transformation of Preston Gray's had another unexpected effect. It began attracting a new generation of sales professionals. Rowan Blackwell, a recent business school graduate, chose the dealership over several higher-paying offers specifically because of its new approach. "I wanted to be part of something that was changing the industry," she explained, "not just maintaining the status quo." The initiative's impact on the dealership's bottom line was undeniable. In the first 6 months after the changes, sales increased by a margin that made industry veterans take notice. But more importantly, the customer base had diversified, bringing in buyers from tech, construction, creative industries, and other sectors that had previously been underserved by traditional luxury dealerships. Holden Briggs, the manager who had initially dismissed Vance, underwent perhaps the most dramatic transformation. His journey from skeptic to advocate became a powerful testimony to the initiative's effectiveness. "I used to think I was protecting our brand," he would later reflect. "Instead, I was limiting our potential." The success at Preston Gray's caught the attention of major automotive manufacturers. Seth Brantley, a regional director for a leading luxury brand, visited the dealership to understand how their approach could be implemented across their national dealer network. What he found challenged many of his own preconceptions about luxury retail. One of the most innovative aspects of the initiative was its approach to customer relationships. Instead of the traditional model of treating each sale as a discrete transaction, the dealership began building long-term relationships with customers and their networks. This approach led to what Tate Winslow, the new customer relationship manager, called success chain reactions, where one authentic connection would lead to multiple referrals from similar successful professionals. The transformation extended to the physical space of the dealership as well. The intimidating museum-like atmosphere was replaced with what Vance called accessible luxury, an environment that remained high-end but welcomed interaction and engagement. The change was subtle but significant, replacing exclusivity with inclusivity while maintaining the premium nature of the product. As word of the changes spread, other industries began taking notice. Preston Gray, whose name was on the dealership, received calls from luxury retailers, high-end real estate agencies, and premium service providers, all wanting to understand how they could adapt the model to their own businesses. The impact was extending far beyond the automotive industry. Think about how many times success has worn an unexpected face in your own experience. How often have preconceptions prevented valuable connections in your life or business? Share your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned for our final chapter, where we'll reveal how this transformation led to an even more surprising development in Ohio's business community. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. The conclusion to this story of change and redemption will show just how far the ripples of authentic leadership can spread. 1 year after J.D. Vance walked into Preston Gray's luxury motors in work boots and a worn jacket, the landscape of luxury retail in Ohio had changed so dramatically that it became a case study in business schools across the country. But the real story wasn't just in the numbers. It was in the fundamental shift in how success and worth were recognized in American business. The transformation reached its symbolic peak during the annual Ohio Automotive Dealers Association conference. In a moment that would have seemed impossible a year earlier, Holden Briggs stood before his peers to present the results of what had become known as the Vance Protocol. The numbers were staggering. Preston Gray's had seen a 142% increase in sales, but more importantly, they had tapped into an entirely new market of successful professionals who had previously felt alienated by traditional luxury retail. Remy Doyle, the association's president, described it as the most significant shift in luxury automotive retail since the introduction of the leasing model. But what made the change truly remarkable wasn't just its scale, it was its ripple effect across other industries and communities. The story took an unexpected turn when Jasper Trent, a prominent venture capitalist, revealed how the transformation had influenced his own investment strategies. We started looking more closely at founders who, like Vance, didn't fit the traditional mold, he explained. It turned out that some of our most successful investments came from entrepreneurs who had previously been overlooked because they didn't match our preconceptions of what success looked like. The impact extended far beyond the showroom floor. Delilah Green, a social researcher studying economic mobility, documented how the change at Preston Gray's had created what she called success visibility. The phenomenon we're seeing non-traditional. Success stories encouraged others to pursue their entrepreneurial dreams. The dealership itself had become something of a legend in Ohio business circles. Finn Montgomery, who had been hired as part of the new initiative, told the story of a young tech entrepreneur who drove 3 hours just to experience the dealership's new approach. He didn't even buy a car that day, Montgomery recalled, but he left with something more valuable, the validation that his success was real, regardless of how he chose to present it. But perhaps the most powerful testament to the transformation came from an unexpected source. Georgia Wynn, one of the customers who had been in the showroom the day Vance was initially dismissed, had gone on to start a consulting firm helping traditional luxury businesses adapt to what she called the new authenticity. Her client list included not just car dealerships, but high-end real estate agencies, premium retail stores, and exclusive service providers. The Vance protocol had evolved into a comprehensive business philosophy. Under the guidance of Orion West, the dealership's new training director, every employee learned to recognize that success in modern America wore many faces. The old checklist of designer labels and polished appearances had been replaced by something more meaningful, genuine engagement and understanding. The transformation had also created unexpected career opportunities. Kendrick Shaw, the junior salesman who had initially avoided Vance, had become one of the dealership's top performers under the new system. Once I stopped trying to guess who could afford our products and started treating everyone with equal respect, he explained, I discovered that success has infinite faces. The impact on the local community was equally profound. Preston Gray's began hosting monthly entrepreneur evenings where successful business owners from non-traditional backgrounds shared their stories. These events, organized by Celeste Hayes, the dealership's new community outreach director, became networking powerhouses where deals were made and partnerships formed, all while challenging traditional notions of what success looked like. The change affected the physical space as well. Under the guidance of Ursula Merrick, an innovative interior designer, the showroom was redesigned to balance luxury with accessibility. The intimidating museum-like atmosphere was replaced with what she called inclusive elegance, a space that remained high-end but welcomed interaction and genuine engagement. The story took another surprising turn when Magnolia Trent, a former skeptic of the new approach, revealed how it had transformed her own family's business. Her father's construction company, which had previously struggled to be taken seriously in luxury circles despite its multi-million-dollar projects, was now being actively courted by high-end suppliers and partners. The transformation had even influenced local education. Thea Whitaker, a business professor at a nearby university, developed a course called The New Luxury Paradigm based on the Preston Gray's case study. The course became so popular that it was adopted by business schools across the Midwest. But the most powerful validation came from the very people who had been historically excluded from luxury retail experiences. Una Maddox, a successful software developer, shared how the changed atmosphere at Preston Gray's had given her the confidence to expand her own company's presence in traditional business circles. When you're treated with respect, regardless of your appearance, she noted, it changes how you see yourself in the business world. The initiative's success led to an unexpected partnership. Xavier Boone, who had witnessed the transformation firsthand, worked with Vance to create an investment fund specifically targeting businesses that demonstrated inclusive excellence. The fund, which quickly grew to several $100 million, became a powerful force for change in traditional luxury industries. The impact on employee satisfaction was equally striking. Under the new system, Staff turnover at Preston Gray's dropped to historic lows. Zoe Vaughan, the HR director, attributed this to what she called authentic engagement. Employees no longer had to maintain artificial personas or make judgments based on appearances, leading to more genuine and satisfying customer interactions. The transformation had also created a new standard for luxury retail training. The Vance protocol certification became a sought-after credential, with professionals from across the country traveling to Ohio to learn the new approach. Bridget Monroe, who led the certification program, described it as teaching people to see success in all its forms. As the anniversary of Vance's visit approached, Preston Gray's planned a celebration that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. Instead of a traditional industry event, they organized what they called Success in Every Style, a gathering that brought together entrepreneurs, professionals, and business leaders from all walks of life, celebrating the diversity of modern success stories. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in the daily interactions at the dealership. Camden Hollis, a longtime customer service representative, described how the removal of prejudgment had created a more genuine connection with customers. "We're not just selling cars anymore," he explained. "We're validating people's journey to success, whatever path they took to get there." The story of Preston Gray's transformation had become more than just a business case study. It was a testament to the power of challenging assumptions and recognizing success in all its forms. In the end, what had started as a confrontation over appearances had become a movement that was reshaping how America viewed success and worth. What assumptions do you carry about success and its appearance? How has your own journey challenged traditional expectations? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to believe in their own path to success. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every day, somewhere, someone is challenging our preconceptions about what success looks like, and these are the stories that need to be told. Sometimes, the most powerful changes start with a simple moment of misjudgment and end up transforming entire industries. After all, as J.D. Vance proved that day in Cincinnati, true success isn't about how you look, it's about the impact you make.